Good afternoon. I'm Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. I'm here today with my Labor Bureau Chief, my Great Labor Bureau Chief Terry Gerstein, Section Chief Andrew Elmore, and Assistant Attorney General Elizabeth Wagner, as well as a good friend and supporter in efforts for workers' rights, Councilmember Mark Levine, New York Communities for Change Director Jonathan Weston, and Luis Juarez, Carlos Juarez, Jose Juarez, and Vicente de Jesus, who are former Papa John's employees. We're here today together to announce a major victory in our fight against wage theft in the fast food industry and in every low-wage industry. Wage theft is not just a serious problem in fast food, it is a crime wave. Fast food workers are already some of America's lowest paid. There are more than 3,650,000 fast food restaurant employees across the country. Their hourly wage is about $9 per hour, which comes out to $4,500 less per year than the federal government's poverty level threshold for a family of four. Wages in fast food have increased just 0.3% in real dollars since 2000. That's 0.3% over 15 years. Now, many people in government and academia and business are genuinely concerned about the growth of a huge underclass of working poor and about rising inequality in America. Well, the most basic step that we can take to get things moving back in the right direction, again, in the American direction of greater justice and greater equality with every generation, is to attack the crime wave of wage theft, manipulation, and misclassification of workers in this state and this country by unscrupulous businesses who seek to profit by making the working poor even poorer. Today, we're announcing our latest successful effort in this campaign to fight back. As a result of a lawsuit filed by my office against the owner of 5 Papa John's pizza franchises in Upper Manhattan, some 447 workers at those franchises will be eligible to receive compensation for the wages they earned but were never paid and for unreimbursed expenses. Over the course of 5 years, Ronald Johnson and his Papa John's pizza franchisee New Majority Holdings cheated workers out of their pay by violating New York's minimum wage laws. Under a judgment issued by the court and filed Tuesday, New Majority and Johnson are required to pay more than $2.1 million in owed wages, unreimbursed expenses, liquidated damages, and interest, which is to be distributed to the underpaid employees of all 5 stores. The judge's order also requires that the proceeds from any sale of New Majority's stores be returned for the benefit of the workers and requires New Majority to comply with the New York labor laws going forward. In our investigation, we found that New Majority and Johnson, the owner and sole shareholder, violated New York's labor laws in a whole variety of ways. They were rounding down workers' hours, failing to pay legally required overtime premiums, failing to reimburse employees for costs of purchasing and maintaining the bicycles they need to make deliveries, and paying delivery workers the lower tipped minimum wage, even though they were assigned to a substantial amount of untipped work, and the tipped wage was not legal for many of these employees. They systematically paid less than the tipped and minimum wage for delivery workers in New York. Altogether, we calculated the workers at these 5 Papa John's locations were cheated out of over $1 million. When we include liquidated damages and prejudgment interest, the liability reached over $2.1 million. Many of you have seen or have heard a slogan for Papa John's Pizza, better ingredients, better pizza. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today's judgment sends a powerful message to dishonest businesses, worse employers, bigger penalties. So I think it should be clear by now that my office, the Office of the Attorney General, has no tolerance for wage theft. We treat it like any other kind of theft. We investigate it, we sue, we prosecute it to the fullest extent of the law. And if you look at our recent track record, you can see that this area of our practice continues to grow. Today's $2.1 million judgment follows an $800,000 judgment earlier this year against the operator of another Papa John's franchisee. We also reached a settlement totaling over $1 million with McDonald's and Domino's franchisees covering over 30 locations statewide. In total, my office has recovered nearly $20 million for over 16,000 New York workers over the last 3 years, and we are just getting started. It's important to note that the overwhelming majority of employers in New York operate lawful businesses. They play by the rules. They pay what they're supposed to pay. They pay their fair share of taxes, and they're at an unfair competitive disadvantage when you have employers that refuse to comply with the rules and try and cut the corners. It's not just at the expense of the workers, which is despicable enough in itself. It gives them an unfair advantage over honest employers who try to do the right thing. We have one set of rules for everyone in New York. That's been our theme in our office since I was elected Attorney General. We will continue to crack down on employers who think they can cut corners and shave wages. Our labor laws, which are some of the strongest in the country, will also be the most strongly enforced labor laws in the country as long as I am your Attorney General. And in closing, I really want to applaud the courage of the workers at Ronald Johnson's restaurants who are represented here today and by Luis Jose, Carlos, and Vicente for standing up and reporting these wage violations. American workers today enjoy basic rights on the job like minimum wage, overtime, requirements for safe working conditions, largely because workers have spoken up and come forward to expose situations where there's a campaign on now to provide greater protections, to raise the minimum wage. But at the most basic level, we have to ensure that we send a message that the laws on the books will be enforced. And we appreciate those who have the courage to raise their voices and fight for these critical protections and enable us to bring these cases. We can only bring cases when workers have the courage to come forward, and we congratulate those who are here with us today representing many, many other workers for their courage and for coming forward to be with us today. I look forward to continuing this fight for New York's workers and workers all across America in the months and years ahead. Let me say a few lines in Spanish. Este dueño de Papa John's violó los derechos laborales de cientos de trabajadores y ahora tendrá que devolver más de 2 millones. No vamos a permitir el robo de salarios. Vamos a someter a todos los que abusan de nuestros trabajadores en Nueva York. And I now want to have a couple of other people join me in speaking. Actually, great allies, each of them, and Mark Levine, a city councilman who represents a significant chunk of Upper Manhattan, is a tireless champion for the rights of New York City workers. Mark.
Thank you so much, Mr. Attorney General, and for your leadership on this. One of the stores implicated in this scheme on 142nd Street and Broadway is in my district, so I know this problem well. And I'll tell you, this is not an administrative problem or a bureaucratic problem or an accounting slip-up. This is a crime. And it has to be treated as a crime no less serious than robbing a bank. In fact, by many estimates, the amount of total wage theft in New York City runs into the hundreds of millions, which is more than we lose in all bank robberies combined. The difference is that here the victims are not powerful financial institutions. They are regular men and women, mostly men, mostly immigrants, who don't have high-priced lawyers or security teams. And they rely on leaders like the Attorney General to step in and fight for justice on their behalf. And I know that when anyone in my neighborhood picks up the phone to order pizza, they want to know that the person who's bringing them their food is being treated fairly, that they are being paid fairly, and that the laws are being adhered to. And an announcement like this today makes us a little more confident that that will be the case. Parece que esto va a ser bilingüe, así que para decir 2 o 3 palabras en español. Esto no se trata de un error burocrático, un problema de contabilidad. Esto se trata de crimen. Crimen no menos grave que lo que es robar un banco. Y se calcula que se está robando más de $200 millones al año de los trabajadores en Nueva York, en la ciudad nada más. Más de lo que se está robando de bancos. Estos muchachos, estos señores, merecen justicia, merecen apoyo de los políticos, del gobierno estatal, y agradezco mucho y aprecio el liderazgo del fiscal Schneiderman por haber puesto esto en la mesa a defender a gente humilde que merecen lo mejor. Así que gracias.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce an an invaluable partner in our work to fight for justice and to protect workers' rights, the Director of New York Communities of Change, Jonathan Weston.
Thank you, Attorney General Schneiderman, and it's a pleasure to be here today with the Attorney General, his staff, Terry Gerstein, and colleagues who have done this courageous work, and also to be here with the courageous workers that have spoken out against employers, many times over, to make this right. As great it is, and as much of a pleasure it is to be here, it's also saddening and horrendous that we have to stand here today. The fact that millions of dollars are stolen from literally the lowest wage employees throughout the city who don't even necessarily make the minimum wage, who are making a tipped minimum wage, which is unjust in and of itself, yet their employers cannot pay them, even the meager tipped minimum wage that exists here in New York. We started a campaign 2.5 years ago to organize workers within the fast food industry, and we organized them around demanding $15 an hour so that families could live and families could eat, that they could pay rent in New York City. Little did we know that in what we were calling for, that workers weren't even being paid the minimum wages that they were supposed to be being paid. And it's with the leadership from the Attorney General that we've been able to recoup millions of dollars to go back to families, to go back to workers that have lost wages from the lowest wage jobs in this city and around this state. And this isn't only in the fast food industry. This is in the car wash industry, where the Attorney General has taken leadership as well, too. This is at airports. This is at low-wage industries across this city and around this state that we are continuing to fight, we are continuing to organize so that we can actually get this money back in the hands of the people that most need it. And we're grateful to be here today, and we look forward to continuing to working with the Attorney General's office so we can continue to have more successes and victories to get the money the workers are owed. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Luis Juarez, a former Papa John's employee who was underpaid, who's here speaking to represent all of the workers who are going to be helped by this judgment.
Bueno, primero que nada, mi nombre es Luis Juárez. Yo trabajaba en la 142 y Broadway. A pesar de que solo me pagaban deliveries, me ponían a trabajar en todo. Tenía que hacer las pizzas, empacar la comida, organizar las cajas, todo por un salario de $5 por hora. Muchas veces la administración administraba la comida, hacía trabajar fuera del reloj sin paga. Y también me hicieron comprar mi bicicleta, casco, luces, cadena, parrilla, ruedas, frenos, y cuando me robaron mi bicicleta en la calle me amenazaban con quitarme el trabajo si no compraba otra inmediatamente. Quiero darle las gracias al fiscal general y las personas que nos han ayudado a recibir nuestros salarios y reclamar nuestros derechos. Le pido a mis compañeros que no se queden callados en las injusticias, que exijan su pago por el trabajo duro que hacemos, y gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, Luis. And I just want to close on a note several folks have mentioned, and that Mr. Concejal spoke about. Consider the scope of this crime wave. This one case is resulting in $2.1 million. How many other hundreds of employers are out there that we just haven't gotten to yet? You have a commitment that my office is only going to expand our work in this area. We're not going to stop until people get the message that you have to follow the rules. And even as we fight to improve workers' conditions and raise the minimum wage, it's very important that all of us in law enforcement, in government, send out the message that we want to hear from you. And we never ask about immigration status. We just want you to feel safe reporting a crime. And this is theft, and this is abuse, and getting the money back for these workers is tremendously important work that we're going to continue to do in our office. And with that, Matt will help us take some questions.
Start with this topic. You can identify yourself.
Sure. Will Driver, New York Observer. This question is, you've quite a list here about fast food franchises going after. Is it your office's finding or your office's opinion this is more widespread at major franchises than is at family-owned pizza places or family-owned Chinese takeout places? And if so, if not, why is the focus on large corporate franchisees?
That's actually an excellent question. There have been studies, and this is a vast area, so it's difficult to get a handle on. But there have been some studies, and I believe that the general trend is pretty well established. That small businesses tend to pay a little more anyway, because they know people, they have relationships with them. It really is true that in larger franchise operations, this comes up as a problem, but it also comes up in car washes. We found it in cleaning services. We found it in many companies. There is a particular push on in fast food right now, but this is something that's true of low-wage workers in many, many sectors. And we have not by no means limited our work to the fast food industry. We've gone after people in all sorts of other businesses who are beating people out of the minimum wage. And this also applies to businesses who receive government work that requires them to pay the prevailing wage or misclassify workers. There is an effort by thousands of businesses, unfortunately, across the state of New York to underpay workers what they're legally owed. We intend to go after them and treat this crime wave as what it is. This is a crime wave. We're talking about millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. If this was just being stolen by some organized gang of crooks, you bet everyone would know about it and be on it. This is something that we treat just as seriously.
Most of these stores, I believe, are closed now. How are we going to get the money? Are we going to get the money for the workers with the sale of the franchise?
The court's order requires that any funds from sale of any assets owned by New Majority or Ronald Johnson be turned in to go for the benefit of the workers. So we're going to now work to ensure that the judgment is collected and that we get the money to people as fast as we can.
You mentioned that there might be hundreds of more workers, and after they see the newscast today, we're going to get a lot of phone calls probably. What would be the best place for them to report if they are indeed one of the employees that's being stolen?
You can go to our website. You can contact our office, www.ag.ny.gov. Our Labor Bureau takes calls. We will return them in English or Spanish. Or whatever other languages we can muster up in the office. We can sometimes get to Russian and Chinese. We have a hotline. We have a website. This is something we really decided we were going to make one of the priority issues in our office a few years ago, and the record speaks for itself. We have, as I said, recovered nearly $20 million for over 16,000 workers. We welcome these claims, and we're trying to work with other colleagues in government to make sure that they join us in this effort, and I think you're just going to see this effort expand in New York State and across the country.
Anything else on Papa John's? Any other topics?
I'm Manuel Zada from New York. I was just wondering if you could comment at all. Did your office recently get a subpoena from the state ethics panel? And are you going to provide them with the information they requested?
Is this related to Mr. Trump's allegations? Look, we're not surprised, and no one should be surprised, when someone who is sued of defrauding thousands of people out of millions of dollars lashes out at the prosecutor who brought the case and tries to avoid dealing with the facts of the case by making allegations. We're going to continue to pursue our claims against Mr. Trump in court, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Gracias.
Gracias.